Hey, this is the Daily Overpass. My name is Eric and I make apps. Now today I want to ask, who wants to be an entrepreneur? So a little bit over 10 years ago, it might have been 10 or 12 years ago, I had this consulting gig at a company. It was just for a couple of days, but I knew the company owner and they had like a bunch of developers and they had this big system they were working on. So they called me in for just a couple of days to go look at their architecture and make a few recommendations on it, which is the best kind of consulting gig you can get because you don't actually have to do the coding. You just go in there, look at the architecture, look at how everything's laid out, make some recommendations, and then just leave, right? So it was really nice, right? But I was talking with one of the people who worked at this company, right? And he was saying, he was talking about how one day he would like to, have his own company too. And he said, but I don't have the entrepreneurial spirit that you and James do, right? And James was the owner of this company, right? And he says, I'm not an entrepreneur like you and James, right? And I stopped him because I thought that was the first time anybody ever called me an entrepreneur, right? And I didn't like it. I guess I kind of liked it, right? I kind of thought, oh yeah, entrepreneur, yeah, me just like this guy. This other guy, it was me and the other guy. The other guy had the building I was sitting in, all the employees I was surrounded with, all that, and me, I was just me. I was the guy who showed up. I rode my motorcycle out there. I sat in a few meetings. I talked with their developers. I looked over code. That was it, right? And I thought about that afterwards, and I sometimes I still think about that now because there's a lot of hype about being an entrepreneur, right? People, like there's T-shirts and entrepreneurs, and when somebody introduces themselves, yeah, I'm a bit of an entrepreneur and all this kind of stuff, and it just sort of sits the wrong way with me, right? And every so often, I start to think, is that what I want to be? Do I want to be an entrepreneur? Is this, or is this, I guess technically because I sell my services and and all this kind of stuff and creating new things, there's an entrepreneurship to it, but there's like this role that we kind of think about. We think about, I guess Elon Musk or whatever. We think about, these people who own the companies or the person who owned the company that I was at, right? And one of the early videos I did, on the daily, one of the first probably 10 or so, I talked about my motivations for being an app developer, right? And the main motivation I had was freedom, right? And it goes back to, when I was working in London as a contractor, it was going in, every day. Well, not even as a contractor, as a permanent employee, right? And it was just sort of, it seems like my entire life is like this move towards freedom. Like this, I'm trying to have a more free and fulfilling life. And that seems to be always the way we go. And every so often I'll take a wrong turn and I'll end up like in a less free place, and then I have to back out and go again, right? So when I was working a job, was getting up early every morning. Some jobs had to wear a suit. Sometimes I didn't. Get on a crowded train or drive down to the train station, get on a crowded train, no seat, just sit in there like that, get on the underground, whatever, go into an office, sit, probably not facing a window, probably just, sit there until 5 p.m., 5, 6, 7, 8 o'clock at night, right? And then get back on the train and go home, right? And it was like this thing where, at first I thought it was really cool. This was the kind of job I dreamed of, having an office job. Right? But then I started realizing how much I hated it. I hated getting up and going because it just seemed that life was unfair. Like, and it's not, I could have just stayed home. I could have just done nothing. I didn't have to go take these jobs, right? But, as an adult, you have responsibilities, you have families, you have everything you have to take care of, right? Yeah. I mean, we want freedom, but we also have responsibility. So it's a balance between the two of them, right? We can't just shrug everything off, right? Right, but I after a while I started realizing how bad this was, and I started looking at other people on the train who would sit there and when you're reading their papers, and you could tell they've been doing it for the last 20, 30 years, and they just, when there's a problem with the train, they just sit there and they grumble, and I thought, I don't want to live this way. When I looked at those people, I could see myself, 10, 20, 30 years into the future, and I thought, I don't want to live this way. Right, so then I became a contractor, which gave me a little bit more freedom, but then I would take on these contracts for 3, 6 months, and sometimes it could go into a few years, which the money was fantastic. I mean, it was great. But then after a while you start thinking, but I'm still, always going home. And it just seemed, you know, something about it seemed not right to me. Something about it saying, you know, you're able to live your life as a free person, but in order to survive, you have to spend, of every 7 days of your week, you have to spend 5 of those doing something you don't want to do. But those other 2 days, those are completely yours. Enjoy the freedom, right? So it just really bothered me. So then when we started doing apps, I was still doing the contracting, everything like that. But it was still this, you know, I wanted to have control of my schedule. I wanted to have freedom, right? And then it was, you know, when the app started to make enough money that I could just stop taking on contracts, stop doing like work all the time. Occasionally doing client work, you know, so we still do client work. Hire on a few people to help out so we can still keep producing. Right? This kind of became the lifestyle that I like, right? In fact, I don't refer to myself as an entrepreneur. I mean, I make apps, right? I do like what every person used to do before the industrial age, which is, you know, you get a skill and you sell the skill and you make profit based on the skill, right? Now, every so often, the idea creeps into my head that, you know, maybe Overpass could be this huge, giant company, right? Okay, don't snicker at this, but hopefully you can relate to this. Every so often, I get this idea into my head that, you know, like 10, 20 years from now, you know, I'll drive in a really nice car and I'll go to this office building and it's high rise and there'll be Overpass on the side, and I'll go in and I'll be the big boss, and, you know, there'll be all these people working there, and I'll walk through the front door and people will hand me envelopes like, yes, and I'll go, how you doing, Mr. Ruley? And I'll say, oh, good job, Johnson. And they'll say, it's Jackson Thursday. Yes, I actually keep up the good work, right? And I'll go into my corner office, close the door, and then, you know, and not talk to anybody, right? And then I think, hey, you know what? That's not the freedom that I was looking for, right? So every so often we start to scale up, when we start to take on more work, we start to take on more client work than I'm ready for. I start to realize that, whoa, you know, I've actually slipped out of the freedom here a little bit, right? You know, where, you know, we all have to do work. We all have responsibilities. We all have, you know, it's very easy to get lazy, all this kind of stuff. And it's really easy to slip out of that freedom mindset. But, you know, sometimes you take on more client work than you're expecting, and then you realize that you're no longer free of your schedule and stuff like that. So I guess what I wanted to talk today about, it was just about this, the goal that so many people have, including myself sometimes. Sometimes I'll think, no, yes, I want to be an entrepreneur. I want to be the guy. I want to be the head honcho. I want to be the boss. I want people under me, all this kind of stuff. And then I think, is that really what I want? Or do I just want the freedom? Do I just want to be able to get up? You know what? Here's my idea of freedom. Like a Tuesday afternoon without any notice, just saying, hey, you know what? I'm going to go to the movies. Hey, you know what? I'm going to take my kids out to the park. Hey, you know, well, when they were smaller, right? Or hey, I'm just going to go do what I want. My idea of not freedom is somebody calling me up and saying, hey, we have a meeting in 5 minutes. We expect you to be there, right? Or hey, you know, where have you been the last 20 minutes? Or, you know, or, you know, we've been trying to get in touch with you all day. That's not a free life, right? Anyway, so my question to you guys is if you want to be an entrepreneur, you know, and look, I've read like so many books about being an entrepreneur, or about running business, all this kind of stuff, right? And then I start thinking, do we want to be huge, or do we want to be small, or do we just want to be, you know, freedom and independence and get away from all that stuff, right? But still have nice things, still have a nice car, still have, you know, make sure my family is well taken care of, all that kind of stuff. I mean, is your goal to be an entrepreneur, or is your job to just to make things, to create things, to be your own person? I mean, and you could do this, you could do both at the same time. Anyway, just be interesting to hear what you guys think. I know, you know what, this is a bit of a ramble. I apologize, but I've been, you know, because you get on a YouTube spiral, and it seems like every video that pops up lately is, you know, how to be an entrepreneur. What entrepreneurs think about this? You're not a true entrepreneur if blah, 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 and all those clickbait titles, right? Anyway, let me know what you guys think. I'll talk to you guys tomorrow.